morning, everyone. We just leave it a few more seconds to wait for people to log on to this live webinar of Coercion and Control by Rebecca Swaine. Hello, everyone. My name is Tina Piermine, and I'll be moderating this live webinar today. I just want to say a massive welcome to everybody who has joined. This event, What is Domestic Abuse, is part of the 16 days of action to end gender-based violence. The Kent Integrated Domestic Abuse Service have 16 events running between now and the 10th of December to inform, educate and inspire action so that we can make domestic abuse everybody's business. Because domestic abuse is everybody's business and everybody can make a difference, which is just what you're all doing now by attending today's event. So thank you. During the event, you are able to use the question and answer text box on your screen and ask questions. As a moderator, I will publish these and ask them at the end of the session. At the end of today's session, you have the chance to ask senior IDVAs from the KIDAS partners. This is Rebecca Swaine, Charmel and Bridget. Rebecca Swaine will be speaking today on coercion control for approximately 30 minutes. And then we'll have 30 minutes for questions and answers with the other IDVAs from the KIDAS partners. I just want to note that your email confirmations show the webinar is slightly longer. This is so we don't get cut off during the session throughout the questions. You can also use the thumbs up just underneath a question to upvote that question if this is something that you'd like to ask too. If you'd like to ask a follow-up question, please preference the question with the words follow-up. So this just leaves me with the wonderful job of introducing my colleague, Rebecca. Rebecca has been working with women since 2006 and qualified as an IDVA in 2011. Her job has taken her into many different roles and settings, but this is with the same goal of making domestic abuse a subject that we all speak about and no one who is in need of support feels alone. Rebecca raises awareness for professionals by way of specialist training, has piloted a scheme in a busy A&E department to provide on-site support. Rebecca also specialises in supporting men who experience abuse and also those with complex needs. Rebecca loves being part of Look Ahead team and is delighted to speak in public at any opportunity that she can. So this just leaves me to hand over to Rebecca Swaine.
Thank you, Tina. Good morning and welcome to this KIDAS Level 2 event around coercion and control. As the lovely Tina introduced me, my name's Rebecca Swaine. I want to just give a little trigger warning for today's session. Talking about domestic abuse can be difficult. It can be difficult for those people who have experienced it. It can be difficult if you've got a loved one or a friend who's experiencing it. For the trigger warning today, we will put up a phone number for anyone that might need support. But what I'll say is during the session, using a rhythmic tapping of your hands can actually help to de-stress and bring your that sort of emotional response down. So anything like drumming, even if it's on your knees, just gently pat away, right, left, right, left, right, left. That will help to bring any anxiety levels down. So today, it's quite a short session. We're going to try and give you 3 key goals today. One is to have that greater awareness of domestic abuse, particularly coercion and control, and the effects that can have on a person. To be more confident in dealing with any disclosures of coercion and control or, inquiries, ways to be able to manage recording coercion and control, and to have a greater awareness of the local support available to you in your area. So what is domestic abuse? Well, the government definition of domestic abuse is on your screen. It's an incident or pattern of incidents, including controlling, coercive, threatening behaviour between those aged 16 or over who are or have been intimate partners or family members, regardless of their gender or sexuality. And I think if you've attended any of the workshops that we've had this week, you'll hear that we've had some fabulous awareness raising around different types of abuse and how as individuals we can support people either in our workplace or as colleagues or as professionals. This session today is around coercion and control, so we won't be focusing on the other types of domestic abuse. We will be looking at controlling behaviours. So here again, the definition of controlling behaviour is a range of acts designed to make a person subordinate and or dependent by isolating them from sources of support, exploiting their resources and capacities for personal gain, depriving them of the means needed for independence, resistance and escape for regulating their everyday behaviour. So in a moment, we're going to have a look at how that actually manifests. We'll use some examples from working case history, and then we'll also have a short video. So coercive behaviour, again, is slightly different. It is an act or a pattern of acts of assault, threats, humiliation and intimidation or other abuse that is used to harm, punish or frighten the victim. So Baz, if we can have the video, this is a video by Women's Aid, Scottish Women's Aid, I apologise. Now this video shows a lot of various ways that control can be implemented within a relationship. It's very comprehensive. So if we can take a look at that video and then we'll come back to discuss in a few minutes.
I felt like I was going mad. No one else could see what was going on.
I never thought anything like this could happen to me.
Coercive control is a pattern of deliberate abuse, over time leaving the victim intimidated, dependent and isolated. It can be hard to see, but coercive control is a crime.
He's such a handsome man. When we were first married, he charmed everyone. I felt so lucky. I couldn't put my finger on when it changed. It wasn't one thing he did. It happened bit by bit.
Why are you wearing that dress?
I could never predict what would upset him.
Those heels, I can't stand the sound they make.
From the outside, we look like the perfect couple, a teacher married to a doctor. But inside, I feel like a hostage. He told me who I'm allowed to talk to and who I'm not allowed to talk to. And then he acted like it was all just a joke. It wasn't. He's deadly serious. He gets the kids to tell him who I see and where I go. He told me he'd put hidden cameras in the house to watch me when no one's there.
After I passed my accountancy exams, I had a good salary. But he controlled every penny I spent. He even kept a spreadsheet. In the supermarket, I'd stand in front of the cereals, scared stiff about what he might do if I chose the wrong kind.
He complains that I don't call him enough, then that I call him too much. He gets into my email and deletes things, and he sends messages from my account.
You're a useless mother. You get everything wrong. You're losing it.
The way he undermines me, it makes me doubt myself. What if I make mistakes in front of the class? Is it all in my head?
He'd smash a plate right beside me and then laugh at me when I flinched. He knew he didn't have to hit me to keep me under control. He'd get angry, then apologise.
You know I love you, but you make me lose my temper. It's your fault.
I thought I'd be safe if I towed the line.
He kept coming to see me at my work, to check up on me. My colleagues thought it was sweet that he was so attentive. He told them,
She needs a lot of attention. She's a wee bit unstable.
I felt too ashamed to tell them what's going on at home. So I left my job. It's like I don't know who I am anymore.
It got so I couldn't go out at all, not even into the garden. He'd hide my medication to punish me. And when his family came round, he acted like husband of the year. I just couldn't bear to tell him the truth. I had no one to talk to.
He says I hurt him. He says he'll kill himself. I feel so guilty. He told me if I ever try to leave him,
I'll cancel your visa. You'll have nowhere to go. You'll bring shame and dishonour on the family. You'll never see the kids again.
I'm trapped. What have I done wrong?
All it took was one person to ask me the right questions. Then I began to open up. I started to see I'm not mad. I started to see the patterns in what he did to me. It's taking a long time to find myself again. Yesterday, someone offered me a cup of tea, and I automatically asked, am I allowed?
Coercive control is against the law. It's a pattern of behaviour that's not obvious at first, but does real damage. And it's a crime.
I wish there was someone I could talk to.
When one person listened to me and believed me, I started to get my life back.
So we can see from that film a really comprehensive overview of what coercion and control actually looks like within a relationship. And I think there are some key points in that film which I think as professionals we can really expand on to be offering the support that we can. And I think the first for me is belief. Believing your client when they tell you these examples of what's going on in their home, in their relationship, and validating that for them so that they feel that you do understand and you do believe them and you do want to be able to offer support. So in 2015, the law was changed. Prior to that, there was very little legally that as IDVAs we could call on to help our clients be protected by the law when it came to coercion and control. And pre-2015, I had a client who would have to look for 4 marked £1 coins throughout the day. And if she didn't find them, her husband felt that she hadn't done enough cleaning, and therefore, you know, she was worried that there might be an incident. I've supported men who've felt that their situation is so controlled that they have to then adjust their behaviour to fit in with their partner. And that can be really subtle to begin with. You know, domestic abuse, coercion and control, these aren't things that happen straight away in a relationship. It's a slow drip effect. And how that then becomes to the point where you kind of lose yourself within that relationship. So we know that coercion and control has a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. But how do we as professionals, friends, even people who might be experiencing that, understand how we can prove that? How can we use what's happening to us and put it into a way that we can then show to agencies, police? We've got a way of recording it. As we can see that, you know, there were 17,000 offences of coercion and control, but actually how many of those offences for coercion and control are standalone offences? Quite often we'll find them tagged on to other offences, such as an assault, but actually, you know, for us to be able to support our clients to show coercion, we need to have tools that we can use to prove and to measure this type of abuse so that we can get a higher conviction rate and hopefully, you know, reduce repeat victimisation. So things that we can do to encourage our clients are keep a diary. You know, a diary is a really useful thing for a client. It's quite cathartic to be able, if it's safe, obviously, to keep that record of events. But also, you know, we can keep copies of emails, phone records. We can record the sort of text and voicemail messages that your client might be getting, any internet sort of like stalking behaviours or anything that builds this package, this body of evidence that we can then go to police and have this additional evidence for coercion and control. Bank records. I actually had a referral once from a bank who had seen some dubious activity on a client, and obviously that feeds into our financial control, another form of domestic abuse. They actually were very concerned around the behaviours of this one particular person's account and contacted support, which, you know, was great to come from an organisation like that. Threats made to the children or any other family members. There we have diary entries, evidence of isolation, lack of contact between family and friends, or possibly isolation physically by being moved away from family and friends. You know, the smaller your network of support is, the less resilience you're going to have to that ongoing abuse that you're experiencing. GPS tracking devices. We're very lucky in West Kent to have a stalking agency and a cyber helpline, which is supported by Look Ahead. So, you know, if any of your clients are experiencing that, there's some really good resources in West Kent that you can use to make your clients safer. So this is a real life scene. It was tweeted by police in Ipswich after they had attended a call out from a concerned neighbour. And I just want us to look at this scene. What you can see here are knives going up the stairs, and where there are little sort of squares, behind that is a bullet. And imagine the police, when they arrived at this address, both parties were removed from the address. And imagine in a third person that Vera lives in this house. Vera lives in this house with Fred. What would we say as professionals are the messages being sent to Vera, who lives at this address? And actually, how would Vera feel if she was trying to leave? And I think, is this house controlling? Is this house threatening? Is this house scary? And I think the answer to all of those is yes. So how are you going to help Vera as a professional if she wants to leave this house? How long has Vera been living in this house? We do know that coercion and control causes a physiological change. Living in high-risk domestic abuse situations, it causes a physiological change to your brain and that the way that we process. And actually what Vera is living on is a fight or flight response. Her hormones will be being activated by that fight or flight. The key will go in the lock. Vera will not know what is coming through her door. Is it someone capable of this kind of behaviour, or is that evening going to pass without event? Vera is currently managing a very difficult situation, which she has no control over. The perpetrator has complete power and control over Vera. And if Vera was wanting to leave this address, it would be very dangerous for Vera and she would need extensive safety planning. But I think we need to understand what it might be like for Vera to live in that home. So what you can see on your screens, and I know what is available for you as a handout, again, is by Women's Aid. It is the control tool. And what you'll see is a way for you as a professional or a friend or someone who's experiencing abuse to have a look at some of the questions on this tool to be able to identify coercion and control and how it fits into the domestic abuse, how we can explain to people what is it actually has become normalized behavior for them, actually is quite controlling behavior. And I will just take a couple from this tool to go through with you, just in case, like me, it's quite small and you might not be able to see it very clearly on the screen. So we've got ways on the tool of identification for coercion and control. So asking your client the question and then being able to answer to identify the behaviours. So restricting freedom. My partner isolated me from family and friends, and you can then go through this tool and identify other ways of isolation. I was not allowed to go out without permission. I was not allowed to use the car. Medical care was denied to me. Accused of having affairs. And actually what this tool does is it helps to build up that understanding of what that person's currently experiencing, being able to safety plan for the answers that have been provided to you on the control tool, but also helping to move your client through their cycle of change, through to a point where they are willing to accept support. They do recognize that the positive response that you've provided as a professional or a friend, and you could at this point be that one person that was spoken about in the video, that one person who offered the right advice and asked the right questions. And with these tools, with other ways of collating evidence, we then might be able to change how we are providing the information to the authorities to be able to push forward with a conviction for coercion and control, reduce the risk and reduce repeat victimization. There are some additional resources that I've been looking at and around. The Staffordshire Police have a downloadable booklet all around coercion, control, the law. It's particularly good. And Bright Sky is an app for your phone. It was developed by Hestia. It provides location-specific support. You can look as a professional, you can look as a client, someone who might be seeking support. Download it on your phone. It's almost like a secret app. And of course, you can come through the pathway for the Kent Integrated Domestic Abuse Services. We offer specialist support all across Kent via Clarion and Oasis, which dovetails me nicely into the fact that I've been joined by my colleagues from across Kent, Shamel and Bridget. Thank you. Hello. I think we're about ready to take some questions. I'm sure between all of us, we've got a wealth of experience. We think probably about 40 years experience, ladies, of working in the field. So we would love to have your questions. If you would like to start popping those into the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to answer those.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Rebecca. There has been so many people really got so much out of that video, and there was a lot of chat about a link for the video, but then John, Christian, Jake, sorry if I pronounced your surname wrong, then kindly put the link in for everybody.
Thank you.
For the video, so thank you very much. So I got a question here, and Shamel, would you like to answer this if you don't mind? Yeah. Do you think that coercion control is treated less favourably and taken less seriously by some services? And or do people, because it's not physical violence, i.e. hitting, etc., although in reality it has a long-lasting psychological effect and also affects the whole family?
Well, that's a big question.
That is a big question.
Coercion control is very hard to prove compared to what you would have for physical abuse. I don't think it's seen less favourably to any other form of domestic abuse. It's just very hard to prove. So like Rebecca had mentioned in the slides, being able to keep a diary, being able to gather your own evidence as you're going through your relationship, if you've got that feeling, that will all help build up the case for if you decide to speak to the police. It does affect the whole family in some form because it's psychological as well. Yeah, ladies, do you want to add anything else to
it? Can I, Bridget? Sorry, I watched Ryan Hart's presentation, and something he said really sat with me. And he said Ryan Hart's mum was killed after suffering years of coercion and control, his mum and his sister, and he said, do not think control is not dangerous. And I think that really hit with me. Bridget, would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't always physical violence in a coercive and controlling relationship, and that is something to be mindful of. However, at point of separation, this could very quickly change. I believe from a professional point of view, we always take it seriously, and so does the police. But quite often, the client or the victim does not realize that they're in a controlling and coercive relationship until much later. Yes, it is more difficult to get evidence, but you could get medical evidence if you're never allowed to see your GP or the hospital on your own and the perpetrator is always with you. If you used to go to work and used to go to work parties and suddenly the person says, oh, actually now I'm going home. Why does that happen all the time? Why are they not joining any more social clubs or stopping socializing with other people? I think professionals take it very seriously, but we have to remember that quite often the client doesn't know, and professionals that don't work in domestic abuse might see a lot of things as being affectionate, very caring and very loving. So it's educating everybody that is important.
Thank you very much, Bridget. And that leads me on to the question. And Rebecca, would you like to answer this? Are abusers aware that they're abusing their partners?
Domestic abuse is about control, power and control. I think as a general rule, yes, a perpetrator needs to take ownership of that behaviour. However, a lot of perpetrators are narcissists, and therefore they don't have the capacity to understand that their behaviours are causing somebody else will always be to blame. From a perpetrator who's a narcissist, they will always blame the victim, blame their mental health, blame their drugs and alcohol. Now, these can be make a situation, these can exacerbate a domestic abuse, but it is all about power and control. It's about one person perpetrating that power over another or others.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And Shamel, Rebecca spoke in her presentation regarding financial control and about a referral from a bank, and we've got a question here that's had a few votes saying, is it mandatory that banks train all their staff in domestic abuse, coercion control, financial control?
I think it would be very useful. I think the times are moving very fast these days, so I think bank staff do need to be aware of what goes on within a domestic abuse situation, financial abuse. So I would say definitely.
I agree.
Thank you very much. And we've got a question here with quite a few votes, and it says, I presume coercion and control manifests itself in, and how it is provided in cases of, it's about parental alienation. Is this kind of behaviour seems to be involved both towards the child and the alienated parent, and it is, in these cases, in emotional and psychological abuse. So this question's around coercion and control and about parental alienation of the parent. Have you got any thoughts on this and regarding the court system?
Well, unfortunately, quite a lot of perpetrators use the court system to continue their controlling behaviour by taking a client back to court over and over and over again, because they don't want just Wednesday contact anymore, they don't just want phone contact anymore, they want overnight contact. Or one parent might want to change schools for the child, and therefore she has to go to court again because the perpetrator is saying, no, I don't want that child to go to that specific school. So courts can be used to continue extreme controlling behaviour. And some court cases of my clients in the family court have been going on for 2.5 years now. There's no physical abuse, but it's all about control. And yes, children are deeply affected. Because children do love both parents, but they're stuck in the middle. They love mum, they want to protect mum, they love dad, they want to protect dad at the same time. So quite often children are being used as a tool in the controlling behaviour by saying, right, I'm going to take the children away, social services will take the children away, or mummy is mad, therefore you have to stay with daddy, or dad is being a bad person, that's why you stay with mum. Quite often, and it's very difficult to then support. It's important that the whole family is being supported in cases, or any cases, that the child is being supported and the victim is being supported, might it be male or female. Does that answer it?
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Bridget. And Rebecca, how can you help clients recognise that they're in abusive relationships that's not just associated with physical abuse?
I think knowing which questions to ask. I think all of us here have had conversations with clients and we've expressed, you're in Tesco's, you're at the back, you know that you've got no signal. How do you start to panic when you know that person can't get hold of you? And actually you'd be surprised at how we develop the skills to be able to pick out what is currently happening for an individual and expand on that. So like Bridget said, if it's coercion around the children and we know that child contact is a flashpoint, then we might start to say, well, what else, do you get 100 phone calls if that person, is you're not answering the phone that day, and we know how to answer those questions. And actually, if we all know how to ask those questions, we can all get the answers around coercion, and we can actually start to take that person who's experiencing it through that power and control wheel, start to, get an insight into what's happening for them and asking the right questions for their situation. But in general, a lot of coercive controlling behaviours are very common. They're things that we see across all types of domestic abuse relationships. And I think if we can start with a few basics, we can then start to help people to understand the situation that they're in. It's difficult to understand that the situation that you've normalised actually to somebody else looks quite controlling. I'll give you an example. I had a client who'd separated, the parents had separated, dad lived at one end of the street, mum lived at the other end of the street, and if the child wanted new shoes, they had to drive to the dad's end of the street, put the shoes on, go to school in those shoes, come back home, stop at the dad's house, take off the shoes, and then go back to mum's. Now, that was not about children's shoes. Yeah, but to keep the peace, that was the routine that was instilled in the morning. They would always do this in the morning. Well, actually, that's very, very controlling, because what you're saying to mum is, no, you can't go to school until you've stopped at my house and I've checked in with you and the kids and got the shoes. So actually, that mum didn't even see that at that point. But by looking at it from a professional, we can say, well, do you need to do that in the morning? Is that just, and it's all part of a bigger picture. This is a larger picture, coercion and control, and it's those little tiny individual situations that need to be explored. And then when you explore it, somebody sees it, and then they start to understand the situation that they find themselves in.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And that also leads me on, if you don't mind me asking you, that a lot of people have asked where they can get a copy of the coercion and control tool that you put on your presentation, please.
Yeah, it's to be sent as a handout to everyone who's signed up today. Actually, it's from the Women's Aid website, which is why I keep saying the Women's Aid website. And it's the best tool that I have come across in my working practice, I'll be honest. You've also got Duluth Power and Control Wheels, but this is a really useful way of asking the questions.
Brilliant. And Shamel, if I could come to you next.
Yep.
A lot of people asking about like intimate relationships and coercion and control. Can coercion control come in other forms of domestic abuse, like mother-son and other family?
It doesn't just have to be a partner relationship. We do find it is parent and child. Also, you can have an uncle and a niece or nephew. So it doesn't just have to be the partner. We do normally find that there are other family members that it does happen with.
Thank you very much. And Bridget, there's lots of people asking questions like when people are asking not to get them to go onto Facebook, or saying they don't like their friends, or saying their friends are a bad influence, or they're a bad parent, etc. Is this coercion control? Is this control?
It could be at the beginning of it. It is always very difficult. Like, let's say when you start a new relationship, quite often you're so in love and everything is rosy that you spend 99% of your time with that person, which is normal. It's the pink glasses effect. However, when after a little while you then say, oh, I've got a mate's night out, going to a nightclub, and that was COVID, but let's say for argument's sake, going out clubbing. He says, yeah, that's what she says, yeah, that's fine. And then turns up half an hour earlier with a bottle of wine and a box of chocolates in the film, and says, oh, I'd much rather spend some time with you. Why don't you stay at home? So that could be the beginning of trying to control somebody not going out, because quite often one would then say, oh, isn't that sweet? He really loves me, or she loves me so much that they want to spend all the time with me. So then it when develops into checking the Facebook account, asking for male or female friends to be deleted, or that I don't like your friends because I think they have a bad influence on you, they'll make you go out, they'll make you go drunk, they don't like me. Or it could be the other way. Oh, she or he had tried to have an affair with me, they were flirting with me. So there could be very subtle steps of this turning into more control. I think if somebody feels uneasy about those things, then one should be very mindful of any other behavior. It isn't just one behavior, but if it suddenly goes to 1, 2, 3 more behaviors or added behaviors after this, then one should be very mindful and ask some questions. Am I being controlled here? Have I still got my free will? Can I go on Facebook whenever I want to? Can I talk to whoever I want to? Or am I being regulated? I think if somebody feels uncomfortable about the regulation that is being put in place, then absolutely is starting to be controlling and coercive behavior, yes.
Thank you very much. Got a question for you, Shamal, if you don't mind. Is it common for perpetrators that tactic is coercion and control to then lead on to physically abuse their clients?
Good question. So I would say it all depends on how that perpetrator is being able to control someone. Sometimes it can lead on to other parts where it's physical, but it all depends. I think every situation is different. Every perpetrator is different. Yeah, that's how I would answer. I would just say every perpetrator is different. Their tactics are slightly different. So coercion and control won't be the same in another relationship. It'll be slightly different. It can lead to physical, but I wouldn't rule it out. What do you say, ladies?
Yeah, I
Definitely
agree.
a point of separation. Most homicides where there has been coercion and control occurred after separation, which is always the danger time. Absolutely.
And I think that the difficulty with coercion and control is it can be so extreme. If you listen to Ryan Hart, you know, their father controlled everything in the household, the heating, the lighting. They were in one room because that was the only room that was warm and that they could, you know, be in, that comfortably be in. You know, if we look at some of the equipment that is on sale that can help to perpetrate controlling coercion relationships, video cameras like in the film, the Hive, you know, like turn your heating up. I know perpetrators who've controlled that from, you know, being out of the house, the heating, the hot water. You know, it can be such a wide range of behaviours, telling you what to wear, telling you what to eat, you buying food and the perpetrator throwing that away because it's not quite the right brand. As an individual, what that starts to do is you start to doubt yourself, you start to question your decisions and get to a point where, like it said in the video, you might not even know whether you're allowed a cup of tea, become a non-person. And I think the spectrum of coercion and control is so broad that it does need more discussion, and it does need more, you know, awareness raising, because actually these types of behaviours can be really, really sinister as well.
And that leads me on to Rebecca, if you don't mind. We have had a lot of inquiries about the cyber clinic and any stalking agencies that are around West Kent at the moment. Would you like to provide a bit more information that you mentioned in your webinar about this, please?
Yeah, we are very fortunate to be working alongside the cyber clinic at Look Ahead to be able to provide a physical check on computers to see if there are any tracking devices, things like that. Now, this is all through Protection Against Stalking that we have here in West Kent, who offer support to people in West Kent, but also nationally via the phone, I believe. I do think they've got a session this week with us, so I would suggest that you sign up and learn all about PAS and a bit more about stalking and how we can manage that.
Thank you very much. There's been quite a few questions with a lot of votes on asking about how can you refer people of whom they're supporting to get information about domestic abuse and coercion control? Would you like
to refer as clients or just as
clients?
So, as a professional, if a client is identified as high risk, which usually goes through a MARAC referral, which is for the high risk clients. But if you're a professional and you should have the consent of the client to refer to services if it's not high risk, because just referring someone and they don't know about it or haven't given consent, it could place them in additional risk. Because we as professionals need to know, is it safe to call? Is it safe to text? Is it safe to contact them? And the client can then provide safe times, safe contact details. It could be email, it could be via WhatsApp or via a GP's appointment and things like that. So every agency has got referral forms you can complete online and then send to the duty desk, or we also have got all helpline numbers. We have a duty worker every day. So if somebody just wants to call in for some advice, then I would advise to call the duty number, and it can be anonymous, names don't have to be given, but we can start by just giving some practical and emotional support and then just take it very slowly or very fast. It depends on what the client would like. So that's, I would say, is the best way.
Thank you very much, Bridget.
Can I just add to that as well, if for professionals, all of the organisations, we all run recovery programmes for historic abuse. I can't speak for the partner agencies of what's current at the moment, but I do know Look Ahead we'll be running Own My Life, which is a trauma-informed recovery programme written by Natalie Collins over sort of 12 weeks. And what that does is it works in a trauma-informed way. So we would then be risk assessing to ensure that the person referred in isn't experiencing any current risks or unmanaged risk. But then we also have programmes available, and I'm sure Bridget, Shamel, if you haven't got it running at the moment because of COVID, you've always got things in the pipeline, haven't we? It's part of the IDVA service. So being able to sign up to one of the courses, again, is another possible route to support.
And that was my next question, Rebecca. It was about courses. People have asked about freedom courses and other courses available. So would you like to just talk about the other courses that are available? We've got the Freedom Programme, got Own My Life.
Oh, for us, sorry.
And then other people can put in other courses that are available, because that's been a question that has been asked.
Well, we're primarily running Own My Life for ladies. Hope to Recovery is something that we hope to be running for men. We have children and parent programs, which is the ACE Recovery Toolkit. And then Tina, you run so many of these. Tell me if I missed anything.
We've got Sexual Violence Recovery Toolkit. It's got Adverse Childhood Experience. We got so many. Recovery Toolkits. Got the Freedom Programme as well that are available in the West Kent. Shamel, do you offer any programmes that?
So we have got the Freedom Programme and Phoenix Programme, but obviously because of COVID, that's not running at the moment. But on the Freedom Programme website, there's links on there to show you who are doing the Freedom Programme via Zoom, which we tend to give out to clients, so at least then they're not missing out on anything.
Brilliant, thank you. A question for you, Bridget. We've had people asking that somebody who uses tactics of abuse, so somebody who's an abuser, would they have grown up in an abusive household to then gone on to be abusive?
Well, I personally don't like the theory. A lot of people say that, yes, they have experienced domestic abuse as a child, so therefore they then become automatically an abuser or a victim. So I don't quite believe in that theory. But, statistically, I think it's even Stevens. So a lot of clients ask me, why is she doing this? And I always answer, because one perpetrator once said, because I can. As simple as that. That's all there was to it, because I can. Some people are affected by their childhood trauma of witnessing domestic abuse, but it doesn't automatically then make him an abuser or a victim. Sometimes it's childhood trauma, sometimes it is mental health, but that's not an excuse, and sometimes it's just because they can. Unfortunately, there is no one answer fits all. Every case is different. We've got perpetrators that had the most perfect upbringing with the most perfect family, no financial issues whatsoever, and they still became a perpetrator. And we also got perpetrators that had the most serious childhood trauma. So it is in each individual. There is no perfect answer, I'm afraid. Sometimes it is as simple as because they can.
So a lot of people asking, is it usual that the perpetrator has previously been abused themselves?
Some have, yes, but not all of them, no. No, not all of them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Bridget. Rebecca, this question has got quite a few votes on. And is there work that can be done with the controlling abuser themselves to try and reduce this behaviour in future relationships?
Yeah, I mean, we do have the CIDAS programme running in West Kent, which is the perpetrator programme. It is a commitment, and that needs to be, spoken with a professional to see if that person is suitable for that programme. I'm not aware of any joint courses that work concurrently with both probably very dangerous situations. So actually, if you've got someone experiencing abuse, it's a very different situation than someone who's perpetrating that abuse. So the CIDAS program is really the only program that I am aware of that works with perpetrators that we have here in the area. Anyone else got any resources that they're aware of?
Well, the CIDAS program is voluntary,
building better relationships.
Yeah. I think it needs to be specific, and it depends if the perpetrator wants support. If they want to change their ways, do they recognize their way? Why are they doing it? It comes down to, again, why are they doing it? Quite often it is very strong women or strong men that are being controlled and broken down. And once that is achieved, quite often, then they move on or continue with the controlling behavior. One has to recognize that their own behavior is wrong in order to obtain help or support. And that's where the difficulty lies. But for perpetrators that do want support, I think it's absolutely important to give that. But in Kent, we haven't got that many support groups for perpetrators at the moment. We've got CIDAS, which is voluntary, and then obviously probation, if it's a criminal offence, run programs as well. But if a perpetrator doesn't want to change, then you can do 20 programs all day long. It will not change the behaviour.
Yeah. Thanks.
I've got a question to all of you. Are you seeing an increase in perpetrators using technologies such as spy apps, devices and installations, cameras within houses, etc., as a way to control their victims?
Yes, and worse. We've got trackers in cars. We've got smart TVs where the cameras are being used. We have Find My iPhone. Alexa is a brilliant tool for controlling behavior because it can control and listen into everything and anything. We've had little monitors in children's toys. Yes, it is. We always trying to keep updated with the new technology, which is very difficult. Yes, it's definitely being used more and more.
And I think, I did an experiment. I went on to a well-known auction site to see which was the cheapest tracker I could buy, and I managed to get one for under £3. Now that's, you know, that's going to work within a certain radius, but it's still got a purpose. It's still a tracker, you know, like in somebody's, and it's so small. It's the size of a 2p. You know, you can put it in the bottom of a bag, a coat lining. We've seen it, haven't we, as IDVAs in practice? But I think, you know, some of the other things that we see are, as technology improves, we have to try and keep, you know, like aware of those other ways. Amazon, what did you say, Alexa? So many children being bought Alexas by separated parents. You know, what you've got there is a listening device signed up to the perpetrator because they're the one that's bought it, you know, like being given to a child to record what's going on in the home. You know, I have seen that in practice more than a few times.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that as well, where the perpetrator's been speaking to the victim through the Alexa, or the dog has had a tracker inside the dog as a chip. So the victim's taken the dog for a walk, and there we go. He's turning up to wherever she may be. So yeah, it's just to be mindful of what's out there.
And it amazes me when I work in schools, and actually I will ask the children, you know, these are year 11, 12, so 14, 15 years old, and I'll say to them, anyone here got a tracker placed on them? And they think that, you know, they're like, what, tracker? No. And yet you pull out your mobile phone, you know, that is a tracker that has the capacity to track wherever you're going, you know, whether it's, you know, Find My Phone or whether it's my partner. So I think it's also this not even realizing the technology that we have in our homes could be used as well to perpetrate abuse.
Just following up on what you've just said there, Rebecca, one thing I tend to find with clients is that on the Safari, where you can do your Google search, right at the bottom of that, it will give your location of where you are. So if the perpetrator is IT savvy, they can follow you through wherever you are, from where you're maybe doing a Google search for, I don't know, a pair of shoes or clothes. It will flag up where you are then as well.
Thank you very much for your answers. We've had inquiry asking to please remind, maybe this is one for you, to please can you remind people who are watching this webinar of some good safe inquiry questions to those that they are supporting, so around domestic abuse. And
well, if you don't mind me going first, ladies, my way of asking anyone in any setting that I've worked in is someone making you feel unsafe? Because if someone is making you feel unsafe, then we have a safeguarding issue that needs to be dealt with. So that would always be my first way of inquiring around domestic abuse. Shamal, do you want to pick up from there? Sorry, I got that.
You took my answer.
I think there are about 5 main questions one can ask. You know, do you feel fearful at any one time in your home or outside your home? You know, is there any physical incidents? Is anybody controlling? So once you asked a couple of questions, you sort of get an idea. I've had a client phone once and said, I just want him out of my house. That's all I want. And I said, okay, all right, so easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Well, in the end, you know, I've explained our confidentiality, and I said, look, if you tell me that he's got a gun in his bedside table, then I have to pass it on to the police. And she turned around and said, yes, he has. I mean, I had to really be mindful that my jaw wasn't dropping on the floor, because obviously you can't shout that you're surprised. But from just that original question, I just want him out of my house, it turned into this huge, extremely high-risk situation where all agencies had to be involved to get the family safe. And we did that within 2 days. But it took social services, police, our safes, the school, and the GP to make the family safe. The controlling behaviour was so bad that they weren't allowed to wash, they weren't allowed to eat. He had a camera to watch her to go to the school because it pointed in the direction of the school. So sometimes a simple question or a simple inquiry can lead to something very, very high risk. So always be mindful. Don't show that you're shocked or surprised, and just take it one step at a time. And that is important. Yeah. But there are a couple of questions. Like Rebecca said, does anybody make you feel unsafe? Do you fear for your life? Do you get hurt emotionally or physically? And then you could potentially think, yeah, we might have a situation here.
So there's so many questions flooding in. I'm trying to keep up with them. There's a question saying, should people in coercive controlling relationships report to incidents to the police? And what is this success rate for the convictions for coercion control? Oh, I know. I didn't that to the panel. I didn't specifically point that to anyone. So whoever would like to answer that,
feel free, ladies.
I can't give you a figure of convictions. But I know it's not very, very high. Because quite most of the time, 99% of the time, the police are looking for additional charges in order to obtain a conviction. Because as we already said, it can be quite difficult to get proof unless you've got bank statements, medical witness statements from neighbours and friends and family, diaries and things like that. But quite often they're looking for additional measures. What was the first part of the question? Sorry, Tina.
Would you encourage those who are being subjected to coercion control to report to the police?
Absolutely, if they feel safe enough to do so. So you can report to the police and you can say, I do not want him to be spoken to, and make it absolutely clear. However, that we're all human, including police officers, and sometimes there are blips. And even though you as a victim say, I don't want police to talk to him or her, occasionally it can happen. So somebody has to be mindful of that. But in order to have a history of things and to provide more evidence for a potential charge, yes, I would encourage to report to the police as long as it is safe enough to do so. A good way of starting might be to getting support from another agency so that it can be done in a safe way, and to discuss a safety plan if needed before anything is done. But yes, I would always encourage it. But be mindful that sometimes it can snowball very, very quickly. So a safety plan should be put in place beforehand.
Thank you very much, Bridget. And a question for you, Shamel. Is there a difference of how coercion control is used between genders? On genders, for example, so the question is like, would a female perpetrator use coercion control differently from like a male perpetrator?
I would say no. I could be wrong, ladies. I would say no. I think it's coercion control is coercion control. Yeah, ladies.
I think actually it's the same, because it's someone taking some aspects of your life that they then are controlling. You know, I've seen female perpetrators control males through the courts. I've seen males control females through their behaviours. Same-sex relationships, it doesn't matter. Control is control. I think sometimes agencies can be brought in to perpetuate some of that sometimes, and that might be because they have an unconscious bias. They might not understand the patterns of behaviour that are controlling. I think if anyone has ever watched Abused by My Girlfriend from the male perspective, the levels of control in that program were immense. And actually, as professionals, that's a really, really good program to watch if you want to understand a little bit more about female to male domestic abuse. There's a lot of control in that relationship there.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of love for your cat. That's
the second appearance she's had this week. What I didn't tell you is she's left me a dead mouse on the floor.
Oh, okay. Just thought I'd let you know there, because this is a very serious subject. So I just thought I'd lighten
Thank you.
This question, if you don't mind, I'll aim to Rebecca because I know how passionate she is about it, and I will have to put a timer on your answer, Rebecca. Should more be done in schools around teaching about healthy and unhealthy relationships and about coercion and control?
Yes, they should. We have fabulous resources at our fingertips. Obviously, we used to run programs in school. That is slightly different. But actually, what we need is for our young people to understand what is a healthy relationship. We are, you know, of an age where we grew up on Walt Disney. We've, you know, our times are changing, and our children need to be educated into what is a healthy relationship, not just a intimate relationship, but a family relationship, a friendship, all of those things. We want to teach those children now so that they understand what controlling behaviour is, they understand what abuse is, and actually where to get support. And by starting in schools, we are starting to offer them a safe space to be able to understand those dynamics and those behaviours. And as scary as it is standing in front of 360 15-year-olds, actually it's one of the most amazing experiences to be able to go in and listen to those young people's opinions and hear their voices and understand what their perception of controlling or unhealthy relationships is right now. Was that quick enough?
Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. And that also leads on to about training for the police to have more information on the coercion and control and often and stalking behaviours, because we've spoken quite a lot about the stalking and the tracking, and about often like the patterns of behaviour, linking all the patterns of behaviour together.
Well, if I could show that video from Scottish Women's Aid to every professional on the planet, it covers everything from immigration to patterns of behaviour. We, the three partners here that are present at this event, all offer training to professionals in their area, including police. You know, I've done it in the past. I think we both hold a common, you know, want to reduce that repeat victimisation. And the more that we can work with police to understand what our clients need, then the better. An example of how that works beautifully is I had a client who just would not deal with police at all, and it was a really high risk situation. And eventually, you know, I didn't know where to go, and I sat with her and I said, look, what is it that stops you from taking this action? What is it that is the barrier? And her perpetrator had got illegal substances in her loft, and the house was in her name. And if that person had been, if she had been arrested and lost her home, she would not only lose her home, her tenancy, her children. So actually, for us to be able to work with police, what happened in that instance was I was like, well, let's sort that out. Let's get that removed safely with the police and him charged, not you. And actually that changed the whole situation. So we might get from clients something that they would never, ever tell police. So we work with police, train police, and have those working relationships for the best outcome of the client, team client across the board. It has to be.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. And I've got a question for you, Shamal. What changes have you noticed throughout COVID regarding domestic abuse and coercion control?
The referral rate's gone up for the domestic abuse. What we're finding though is that it's quite hard for victims to come forward, especially if they're in that relationship with the perpetrator still. It's not safe for them to talk. They're at more risk. So although the referral rates are coming in from maybe the neighbours being able to hear something and report it in through the police, it's actually quite hard for that victim to make any contact while they're in the lockdown situation. And obviously agencies can only do as much as they can. So like the one-stop shops, the group work isn't happening, where that would also be an escape route for the victim to be able to talk. There isn't any of that at the moment, so actually it's quite limited for what that victim might be able to do.
Thank you very much. And Bridget, if you don't mind me coming to you, who are the first professionals that may be the first responders to disclosures or recognising the signs of domestic abuse? And the person who posed this question stated that family liaison officers and schools are often the first professionals to discover domestic abuse in families.
Yes, it could be flowers quite very often. GPs, hospitals, we get referrals from hospitals, the SARC, police, and clients themselves. So I think there's an initiative where Boots, for example, in a lockdown, have got a room where clients can go to and talk to somebody or use the phone to ask for help. So there have been a lot of initiatives set up in the Kent area to support clients during lockdown and to talk to somebody. It could be anyway, it could be a hairdresser. So it is then important to, if you're not that aware of the subject, it's pass it on to professionals, because then they can do the safety advice and safety planning, which is the most important thing. The most important thing in any domestic abuse situation will always be safety planning. Because they're saying, all right, come on, let's leave then. It's dangerous. It needs to be done in a very thought out way and in a safe way. And sometimes it will take a couple of days or a week even before somebody can leave. But yes, it can be any professional. And professionals that work like schools, for example, GPs and hospitals and police, they will then automatically refer to us in the standard to medium situation with consent, and in a high risk situation they can refer without consent because it's so high risk. Yeah, but it could be any professional.
Thank you very much, Bridget. And I'm going to aim this question to all of you. And it's one that's very passionate to myself as well, this question. So I'm so glad that it's been asked. Do you think that child survivors are more impacted by subtle abuse like coercion and control, or more obvious abuse like physical abuse? As we know, all forms of abuse impact children and child survivors. But what would you answer there?
It all leads to childhood trauma, irrespective if it is physical or emotional. The impact can be huge because a child is involved in a controlling behaviour. Have they got new school shoes? Are they allowed to eat when they want to eat? Are they allowed to talk while they're eating? Do the toys have to be put away before mommy or daddy comes home from work? But it all leads to childhood trauma. So for me, both. There is no difference.
No, I completely agree. It's just people have been asking where could they be directed to get the a copy of the DASH questions, the RIC questions.
The DASH is available via the Safe Lives website. What I would say is if you've never used a DASH before, it is a tool that does need a little bit of training on. I would always read the guidance, and if you've got any concerns about using the DASH, then maybe speak to your IDVA service if it's for an organisation, and they might be able to offer you some sort of pointers in filling that out. Filling out the DASH obviously then could potentially lead to a MARIT referral. So the process, it is a specialist tool. So I would say if you're not used to using the DASH, then possibly, read all the guidance that goes with it before you try and implement it, and know what you have to do with it once you've completed it. Does that work? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And I think I'll leave this as a last question. Do you think there should be more done by the government to help support sort of those who are being subjected to abuse, those who are abusing, and the ripple effect of abuse.
Yes. Make domestic abuse services statutory and for the government to financially support those services. Absolutely.
Yeah. The funding for services, is always there's. When we qualify as IDVAs, we get given the starfish story. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's about the amount of starfish on a beach and a little girl trying to throw them back into the water. And someone says to her, how can you possibly, you're wasting your time. There are too many starfish for you to possibly help. And she picks up one and she throws it into the water. And she says, well, I made a difference to that one. And I think actually we need to be thinking about all those starfish, like all those people who need support, the waiting lists for support programs, refuge is really, really difficult in this climate. And yes, I think none of us would be very good IDVAs if we didn't say, absolutely, we need more resources, we need more facilities, more groups and more funding.
And I thought that would be the perfect place to end our lovely questions with the IDVA. So thank you. So it just leaves me to thank you. Well, thank you, Rebecca, for your session on coercive control. And thank you, Shamel and Bridget. And again, Rebecca, for answering all the questions. I've had so many in. And like last time I moderated, they just come in thick and fast. There's so many people that want to ask so many questions. I just want to add, there's lots and lots of questions about the control toolkit, and that will be emailed out to you as a handout. Those who have signed up to this live webinar. We're going to take so much out of this session. So fantastic job. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody who asked a question, did the thumbs up, added it up. And my apologies for those who didn't get it published. There were so many on there. Like I stated, it was really difficult to keep up. A recording of this webinar will be made available to you shortly. If you've enjoyed this event, please do note that there's still time to register for more of upcoming events. So your conference journey doesn't have to end here. So go to www.daeverybodiesbusiness.org, and that's where you can register. This is so we can keep the conversation going, and you can use the hashtag hashtags DA Everybody's Business and hashtags No to See Speak Out. If the talk today has raised anything with you personally and you'd like to find out more about the services available, please visit www.domesticabuseservices.org.uk, where you can find out more about your local services. And today on the discussion, we spoke a lot about the freedom programs and the other programs available, and there you can find out where your local services for these are, alongside other services that have been discussed. So that just leaves me to thank you all. Have a good day, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget.
Bye.
Thank you, Mel.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.